Welcome. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni, the founder of Transformative Harmonics, a podcast that offers listeners a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. Hello, welcome back to Transformative Harmonics. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni. I would like to introduce someone who is so sweet today and beautiful, and I'm so glad that she is here on this planet. Jen is someone I came across who I thought embodies integrity, authenticity, clear channeling, and beautiful example of what it means to be embodied through your higher self. If you are in a place where you're trying to discern information, who should I listen to? What's real? Can I trust this information or person or energy? Jen, I think, gives us a beautiful example of something that is real and authentic so that you can use that for yourself to determine, as you meet other people and come across them. Jen is someone, I think, who walks the talk and is clearly here to support those that are on the path of embodied awakening. She has 36 years of a career in research management in the pharmaceutical industry, and she brings us in with her cumulative experience, 17 years on the path of healing and service. She's hosted her own podcasts in the past. She's led spiritual groups, and she's offered many different services ranging from animal communication to bioenergetic healing to intuitive readings. She's even received training and has a master's in intuitive arts and energy science. Right now, she's here to speak about her own personal healing journey, what catapulted her forward to opening her heart, aligning the ego mind, and ultimately being an open channel. So you can find her now working as a channel. She is a light language practitioner, a life coach, and a spiritual teacher. She sees herself as a divine channel of healing energy, light, and love, and she has a very practical approach that focuses on the expansion of the heart and your intuition and helps you expand your awareness so you can live your most authentic, heart-centered, and divinely aligned life. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and I will see you on the other side. Hello, guests. Welcome back to Transformative Harmonics. I'm your host, Paula Scatoloni. Before we begin today, as always, I would like to invite us to shift our frequency by slowing down. This allows us to create a little space so that the message and words and frequency of what's going to come through today has a place to land. And so I'll invite you for a moment to find the back of your chair or underneath your seat or underneath your feet, whichever place begins to, kind of shift you from fifth gear into first as you start to orient to that space behind you and the support that's always available. So much in this podcast, we're talking about tuning in to what is there that we don't pay attention to. And support is always there when we orient to it. So taking that last breath, I would love to start my conversation with Jen. We were chatting before we began that I usually don't just serendipitously call someone without knowing much about them and say, would you like to be on my podcast? But there's something about your resonance and who you are and how you come through that spoke to me. And it just felt a kinship in an odd way of, I think I would like this person. I would like to spend an hour hearing her story. And I also just find your channeling so unique and so not only calming and helpful, but it's so authentic. And so I'd love in this podcast to give examples of authentic so people can use their discernment and understand, right, what that means. So thank you for coming on board. Thank you for
having me.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and start. Because I do not know a lot about you, I would love to start with my own curiosity of about your path. I have looked at the website and so I'm always curious about, what has the awakening path been like for you up to this point? And tell us a little bit about your journey and who you are and where you come from.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here, Paula. Thank you for having me. You know, I sort of see my own awakening journey as a kind of a lifelong thing, right? Like there are different times and moments that I remember very significantly. And the first one I remember was when I was like 3 to 4 years old in my parents' non-denominational church with them, listening to the minister talk about God and the love of God, and just like a remembrance, right? Like this powerful remembrance, and also of the feeling of separation, right? Like that feeling of it was separate from me now, or that belief that it was separate from me. And I mean, it's amazing that I can remember that from that age, but I remember that feeling of, oh my goodness, I need to connect with this human because this human knows that love, and I know that love, and I don't know how to get back to it, like that sense. So that's my most powerful first memory of awakening. I really feel like I didn't have any really significant moments until later, like in my 20s, is when I really had some powerful awakening moments. And that was, I remember of reading The Celestine Prophecy when it came out in 93, 94, I think I read it. And having this moment of, oh my gosh, there's more to this than I understood. Like, you know, I was traveling for work. I was in the corporate world, in the corporate pharmaceutical world. Started in my 20s, and I was flying all over the country and reading voraciously. So once I read that, then I was looking, I was seeking, I was trying to find other books. I remember of, you know, being, you know, still associating, you know, spirituality with church, because that's what, you know, how I was brought up, and seeking out a church at that time, and finding a church that I would call it like a, it was in California, it was like a spiritual rock kind of church, like a, you know, a very youthful church. You know, and in my 20s, that was rather perfect. But the amazing part was I sat down in this church and they were singing these songs, and like there was this remembrance again, the same kind of thing where the tears are just flowing and I can't stop. And it's this remembrance of, I don't know how to reconnect with this. There was just this seeking, this deep seeking. And that kind of continue, you know, while it wasn't an ongoing thing in my life because I was super busy in my corporate life and traveling and everything, it continued. And in my 30s again, I was married, and my husband was overseas with the military. That was during, you know, after 9/11 and all of that. And I found myself doing a lot of reading and seeking then, and seeking answers. I was reading Conversations with God and different books like that. Yeah, it was a lot of books that led me down different paths,
Yes.
and that, you know, where I took my inquiry. But yeah, then after, it was interesting because then I got a divorce at 40, and I was really like catapulted into my spiritual path at that point. That's really when I see that like things really started up. I actually started a group. I called it the Girls Growth Group. I rallied my girlfriends, and, you know, I had gotten my own apartment, and I would have this group come like once a month to my apartment, and I would have a life coach. I would have a spiritual, some sort of spiritual teacher. I would have a psychic come and read us. I would have like different things. And so that really kind of catapulted things. And then that kind of took me to, I found a school called the Chakra House. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. It's no longer there. It was a great school because I got a master's in their master's program there. But I started going to the Chakra House, going to school and learning so much more. And I started another group. I started the Spiritual Explorers group in Madison. It was a meetup group that grew and grew and grew. And I discovered some of the people that people might know now, like Lee Harris, when he was nothing. I mean, he was just like one little monthly video. I did a face-to-face Skype with Lee Harris, actually, He was probably one of the first people I
Wow.
had actual reading with. And, yeah, so, and I didn't get to meet the Z's, unfortunately, with Lee Harris, but he didn't channel during that session, but we did have a really great discussion, and he was lovely. And that was probably 9-10 years ago. But yeah, and then it's just kind of, gone and gone and gone. From there, I started to take more classes, and I started to kind of do my own little businesses. So for a while, I was taking animal communication classes, and I was doing an animal communication business. I took Reiki with some different people and learned Reiki and did a small Reiki business for a while. I trained with Doreen Virtue back in the day. Like, she did a lot of online classes, and so I did an online class with her and learned about. Okay, yeah, no, she's kind of I don't know, she's long
not
gone.
familiar.
She's
What
kind
does
of
she do?
removed herself from the spiritual community for many years now, but some people might remember her. She was very big with Hay House and that group, but she did oracle card training. So I did oracle card training with her. So there were a number of things I sort of dabbled in and did small businesses in. And, I have to say that, through that time, I really lacked confidence. I really lacked a lot of confidence in what I was doing. So people would say, "Oh, you're doing this now. You're doing that." Because I would change up a lot, because I would just lose my confidence in what I was doing. Even though, for example, when I was doing animal communication, I was working for a group that was called Lost Dogs of Wisconsin, and they were using me to find dogs. So it's not that I didn't know what I was doing, but I would just lose my confidence completely, or if I didn't get feedback from people, on what I gave them, I would think, "Oh, I'm not capable. I'm not doing this." So I really attribute it to confidence during that time, that I really didn't have confidence in what I was doing. I was doing it, and I was doing it well. But that's when, around that time, that was I would say, let's see, I'm trying to estimate here. Probably around 2019, I really had, I would say, a really powerful dark night, or 2018, dark night of the soul, really big, powerful dark night of the soul, where, my guides got me out of, I had this house. I was kind of very much hermiting in this house that I was renting after my divorce. I had been there 8 years, and I really got everything kind of started falling apart in this house that I was renting. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So I went and rented this apartment with my 2 dogs, and I just was miserable there. Miserable. Life felt kind of miserable. Actually, that's when I had started my business around that time. I had started my business, and I was blogging. It was Lee Harris who told me, "You need to blog. You need to blog. You need to write." And I'm always writing. I'm working on a book right now. But I've always been a big writer. And so I was writing, and it was very cathartic for me. It was very helpful for me to work through my stuff in that writing, even though I didn't have much of an audience at all. But yeah, I had this dark night of the soul, or dark night of the ego, I call it, where I just melted down. Like, I'm miserable. I don't know what I'm doing in the corporate world. Here I am in my, at the time, I was probably, I have to think back, late 40s, or, around 50, probably late 40s. And I just had this complete meltdown, and it was actually the perfect thing. I think it was on 11/1, which to me, and the apartment I had moved into was 111. So it was I did feel it was catapulting me into a new beginning in hindsight. Not in the moment. In the moment, it felt like my world was crashing. But I was seeing a wonderful, I wouldn't call her healer. She was more of a psychic reader that I saw, or I met with, like, every quarter or so. And I met with her. I remember it was February of 2019. And it was, okay, you need to get on the healing, like, intense healing path. And I had been on the healing path. I'd been working with healers all along. But she's like, you need to, needs to go. And, you need to intensely, aggressively take this healing journey. And she just suggested, just go with your instincts, go with, someone who knows Reiki, like go with a really good person that you trust. And she also told me that I had a twin flame, which was fabulous because that also catapulted me in a big way, because I felt so alone in the world. And just to have this hope and this faith that there was someone out there for me potentially, right? And it was sort of like she just dropped just those seeds and a few other seeds about my career path and, where I was going, and that things were going to eventually take off, and to have faith. And she was also one that told me that I needed to move like across the country. Like you need to go, you need to change your life. There were multiple things that she kind of seeded in me in that February 2019 reading. And it was enough to inspire me. Mind you, I think I was still in that cycle of sort of denial denial of even what she told me. And it took me until about maybe June that year to actually make that first appointment with that healer. And I went to a healer that was, I'd been to her for Reiki, and she did a lot of other different types of healing. She was also a hypnotherapist and did a lot of different types of healing. And so I went to her and, just intending like, oh yeah, well, this will be a visit or two, and each visit was more and more powerful. And I ended up going to her weekly for a year and a half. And literally, it was funny because it got so expensive at one point, so challenging with my budget, that she actually spent an entire session going over my finances with me and reworking my finances with me so that I could actually afford to continue. And it was intense, Paula. It was so intense. Like I have never, it makes me gulp because I was in physical pain. And it went into, as you know, it went into 2020. So it was during COVID. And there came a time when we had to do sessions over the phone. And luckily I was good enough at dropping into that hypnosis state that we could do it over the phone. But it was so intense. And I had some really profound moments with that too. I had some moments where, we would be working on like family stuff. And that family member, I would turn my phone on, my cell phone off and put that in the other room. After I'd be off of that hypnotherapy session, I would check my phone and there'd be 5 calls from that person. And I would call during clearing the energy, and I would go and call that person and they would be angry at me, but not know why. It was so profound, some of the things that happened. But yeah, so while I was going through that, and bringing up just so much stuff, I also had what I called my 911 healer. She was this fabulous, fabulous healer who worked with music. And she would, when, I would get into this anxious state sometimes after one of my hypnotherapy sessions, and literal physical pain. And, especially in the gut, those lower chakras. I mean, that's what we were really clearing. And she would work with me and help me to clear it in between those sessions. So I literally had multiple healers working with me at once. But yeah, so that was my really intense time. And I've gone through kind of, I would say, rounds of sort of healing all these fears. And I would literally call it fears, like ingrained fears. And it's past life fears, and it's fears from this life. But it's, and a lot of past life stuff was coming up as I was doing all this clearing. And it's been profound. And I've been working with that hypnotherapist I worked with for a year and a half. I've been working with the other healer, my 911 healer, weekly ever since. We meet every week, and, she's just a wonderful coach too for me. But I feel like it has just been this, I really see it as sort of like peeling back the onion, right? Like, it's just been layers and layers and layers. And it's not just this lifetime. I know a lot of people would say, gosh, have you had that much traumatic stuff? No, not at all. Not at all. I remember of during, an intense time of laying on my bed, going to take a nap and just hearing this one word and going, what is that word? Auschwitz, Auschwitz. And so like the past lives started coming up, I saw that, I saw, like, for example, that my ex-husband was a guard. I was shown that he was a guard at Auschwitz and I was the prisoner. And so, like, it was profound, but I was shown this with family members and all these things. And it was so profound and beautiful because it just brought so much clarity to why I, have all this intense fear and all of these feelings, and also all the relationships and the purpose, and kind of bringing things full circle in beautiful ways. But it's really brought me, to a place of, wow, of just calm, like the level of calm in my body. Like, it's just like it was purging and purging and purging. And, and I don't want to scare anyone, because right now we can clear things like fast. This, as I'm sure, in past years, even in the last 2-3 years, like, it was so much slower than it is now. It was so much more challenging. It took so much more time to clear those things and to have those realizations and move it through. Whereas now, I can have a session with, I can feel something and have a session with my healer, or even just sit by myself, and I know how to clear it now. Like, I know how to clear it. So it's a profound difference. But I really feel, Paula, like it's been this long process of, not just awakening, but clearing and opening my channel. And as it's coming full circle with that, back to like sort of the channeling and the light language. I mean, channeling I've been doing, without realizing I was doing it, to be honest with you. When I was in that class, I don't know, probably 12 years ago, in the Chakra House class, where I was getting that master's, some of the students, I was hanging out with some of the students, and they were at my house one day, and I said to one of them, gosh, I journal every night, and I've had these journal entries lately that don't even sound like they're me. And I brought my journal out and showed it to her, and she goes, you're channeling. And I was like, I didn't know what channeling was. I had no idea. And then she started actually channeling, in our group. And so then I really understood channeling a bit more. Mind you, I didn't start speaking it until just recently. In the last year is when I really started speaking it. And it was really at the nudging of my own healer coach. I mean, she just said, it's time to start speaking it. And I had already been speaking light language. So it felt more natural to, I had opened to that.
So recap a little bit, just so people are with us. I love that we're walking through the details of all the different things that can happen along the journey, because I do think there's a lot of people who you have physical symptoms and they don't understand why, right? Or their marriage breaks up and they don't understand why, or they're miserable at their job all of a sudden and they don't understand why. And so your journey is about helping us to reflect and say, well, maybe this isn't happening just because it's happening. Maybe this is part of your awakening. And so you went through those and then had to get support for the physical part of it and work the physical and the emotional together, which is also a piece, because it's not only physical when it's physical, and it's also the emotional is the meat of it, really, the emotional body and the purging. And so I think it's a beautiful description of the depth, and, it does take commitment. However, it is shorter. Back then in 2019, many of us didn't know what we were in the middle of. It was the first wave, or I don't know if 2007 was the first wave and we were the second, but it was the first.
Exactly.
Right. Really collective wave. And so I just thought, at times, am I going crazy? Right. So there's so much material now, and there's so many reference points, right? Which is beautiful. I also like that you're talking about that there's a range of different healers that we can go to. It doesn't have to be one certain one, and that you just follow your instinct to who feels right for you at the time. Yes. Okay. So as you evolved, you understood that you were intuitive. You understood that you were now on a path, I'm assuming, with your career. That have you left the corporate world at this point? Okay. So keeping it all, which is also a choice. Some people, they keep everything intact and then just move through with it all. Some step off a cliff and leave and fall into spaciousness. But you stayed, and through that, then you began to really tap into and fine tune your intuition. And so you realize, wow, writing is a form of channeling. Writing. Okay. And I believe that. I believe music as well. People who produce music, it's a form of channeling. And then some things started opening up them with using your voice as an interpreter. I think of us as, like the switchboard operator or a linguist. I think of it as a linguist.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
So you're a linguist.
Totally.
And so let's start there. What happened with that? How did that piece of the journey open up?
Yeah, well, let's start with the light language, because that is what came through. I mean, while I was channeling in my notebook,
what is
years,
light language? Let's
light
tell
language
the listeners
came
what that is.
through about 3 years ago for me. Yeah, light language, I really see it as it's also channeling, right? It's all sort of energetic channeling. I always tell people, especially when I'm in sessions with people, like, I'm channeling through in all these different ways, and it's all energy, and it's all light, and it's all divine love, right? And it's just being brought through in different ways. But I see light language as sort of a translation of light, it's energetic. It can be a message. It can be so many different elements to it. But I feel it. I'm one of those people that feel it in my body. I feel the energy of it. Other people can sometimes get, actual messages through it. And also I can set intentions around it. Like I will, every month for my Patreon members, I actually set an intention and channel through about, 8 to 10 minutes of light language around that intention, so that it can be a very intentional healing energy. Whereas some of the, the stuff I do on social media, I just bring through whatever comes through. I'm like, I know that it's meant for people, and I know that it's energetic, and I know it will be received by whoever it needs to be received by. So I just bring through whatever comes through and just trust that. But yeah, so the light language, my own coach healer that I work with, she has always spoken light language. So I knew it from the beginning, and I didn't really know or understand what it was. When I first started to speak it, I noticed, for example, I was doing the dishes in the kitchen and I was speaking gibberish, like just talking to myself. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? And I asked her about it, and she said, that's light language. And it was, the ego mind can get really in the way with that, with everything. I mean, that's what we have to get out of the way. And in the beginning, it was sort of this analysis paralysis, where I would start to speak it and my mind would be like picking it apart, or what is that? Or this sounds silly, and so it was a little bit challenging for me in the beginning. It wasn't flowing so much, but I had this really profound and beautiful experience where, one of my dogs was dying, and she wanted to go naturally. She was a very strong soul, very strong-willed, and she wanted to go on her own. I actually was going to have her euthanized, and she turned around and gave me a dirty look. She was like, "Don't you dare." She was hysterical. But anyway, this beautiful soul of mine, Ella, was laying on my bed, and I was, just literally holding ritual with her, for a couple of days as she was going through the dying process. And it was beautiful and profound and heartbreaking at the same time. But the most beautiful thing that happened, Paula, was I was sitting with her one day, as she was going through that dying process, and suddenly the light language just started flowing, and I was singing it.
Dialects.
I was speaking different, I would say different dialects. Different dialects were coming through. some of them sounded like, like a child. So, I mean, they were just beautiful. And the most beautiful thing was she, at that point, really couldn't move her body. And she lifted her head up and listened to me. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is amazing. This is amazing. It was just so beautiful and profound. And it lasted probably close to an hour that I spoke it. And it was so cute because, I truly believe our dogs are our animals are our guides too. And my other dog came in and stopped me. It was like, okay, like it's time. That's enough. But that was really beautiful. And that really kind of catapulted things for me with light language. It was like, wow, okay, that was amazing. And so that sort of opened the channel for me a bit more. And I also had a friend who I would practice sort of doing it, with her, like with someone else, because I was speaking it around my home, but it felt very awkward to speak it with someone else. So another friend spoke light language. And so at the end of our calls, we would always end with a little light language exchange. And that started to help me to feel more natural about doing it, with someone else too. So that was really how light language started for me. And it was my own coach that said, you need to start recording it. And at first I didn't want to get my face on camera. It was, doing in the background with music and a visual. So it took me a little time to get the courage to get my face on camera. But as I was doing that, as I was starting to put my face on camera and do light language, my coach said to me, you need to also channel. You need to get your channeling out there too. And so, I was like, wow, okay. Yeah, it took a lot of, putting my brave
And are you
pants
still
on.
at the pharmaceutical company at this point?
No, actually we can backtrack to that, but this was all like last year that I really got my face on camera, that I've been doing it. I've been doing it myself, in the privacy of my own home and with friends, but I hadn't been putting my face on camera. So it was really end of last year that I really decided to put my face on camera and do it.
And that's a part that drew me when I saw you on camera. I'm at the stage where I'm just putting my voice and not my face. So I totally get that face. But when I saw you, your authenticity with it and your level of comfort with it really comes through. So, yeah. So whatever process you've been in to get that settling, it's very, it comes through. Yeah. So it's received in a way that you're embodying it in a way that just looks natural. It's just like, oh, we're talking.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to say too that I attribute that, number one, to really taking the time to open my channel. I haven't spoken a lot about this, but I've really been very much working around the ego mind and learning how to manage the ego mind too, because I definitely had PTSD. And that was something, that took all the healing in my journey. And the ego mind was so active that, like I said, when I first started light language, the ego would get in the way. I could tell when the energy was flowing, and I could tell when the ego was getting in the way or questioning. Oh, you've said that, 3 times now. Like, is that, it starts to question things. And so I really had to learn how to move that out of the way. And that took time. But I think, it took time. And I also had to get comfortable with things. And I have to say, I've been channeling for years. I've been doing light language, had been doing light language for several years. I like the fact that I had the time to get comfortable with that, right? To feel comfortable in it, to have it really resonating with me, and know how to manage the mind and know when I'm in the flow and when I'm not in the flow, because there's a profound difference there. And to really start to recognize that, because to deliver something to an audience, I want to be clear. I don't want that to get in the way. So I'm really glad that I went through kind of the journey that I did and took the time with it that I did and didn't get on camera right away.
So allowing space and time for all the pieces, the insecurities, the doing it in certain ways, one step at a time, one toe at a time. And it's all part of the path.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Yes. Yes. And so you've got this beautiful light language flowing through you. You have, we'll just kind of skip ahead. You're not in pharmaceuticals. You're opening to just being a channel in general as your main service, right? It looks like, and an educator like me, you're educating on the new paradigms and whatnot. And so as a channel, let's talk about what that means to be a channel and what comes through, because you're a linguist, right? For higher dimensional sources.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most beautiful thing was to really realize that, we're all telepathic, we're all connected, we're all one. And that when we can get, like I said, when we can get the ego mind out of the way and we can connect to anything, really. We can connect to anyone and anything as long as they're clear. I think, the reason that channeling, in some ways, I feel like the reason channeling is coming first ahead of like telepathy between like me and you, for example, is the fact that these beings that we're channeling for the most part are so clear, right? So that if we can get the mind out of the way, we can allow them to come through very easily. It's much easier for them to come through to us than another human who's got still managing the ego mind, right? So I feel that the reason that a lot of people are channeling now and are opening to that is because if you can get that ego mind out of the way and allow that through, it's actually fairly easy. I always say to all my clients, you can do this just as much as I can. You can. It's just a matter of, clearing the channel and really opening the channel. And that is really about, managing that ego mind, coming back to the heart, and really being able to be present with that. And the presence really is about the mind, right? Like it's really about making sure the mind isn't taking it somewhere else.
And being, well, if I can't interrupt, being okay with what it is that's going to come through. Because if your mind is like, I don't really want to talk to you, or I don't really want this to come through, that will block it. But if there's no fear about the field itself.
Well, fear, yeah, I truly think fear will block it, or fear will bring in a different energy completely. And I also feel really strongly, Paula, that what comes through is in alignment for you. Like it's, and my audience obviously resonates with me and, my energy and what I'm bringing, just what I'm speaking about, what I'm bringing through. So I always feel like, there are most of the time it's our guides we're communicating with. Mind you, I feel like we can connect with many different beings, but they're all usually closely connected to you, right? Yeah, they're closely connected to you. So the messages that I get are always in alignment with what I'm getting in my day-to-day life. That's what I find. I mean, sometimes I know that channelers can get some things that are very kind of out there or profound, but usually I feel like it's still something they're very connected with. That's normal, that you're not going to get anything out there. And I think some people have had, I've talked to people that are scared, like, oh, a dark entity will come through. And it's like, no, it's your energy. It's your energy. And if you're clear and you're opening your channel, holding space, it's everything is a match to us, right? Everything is a mirror. So it's where you're at. So I always say, just trust. Like, you know your energy and your life lessons on what's going on, and you're going to get beautiful messages about that. And actually, Paula, when I look back to when I was journaling and getting those messages years ago, they were these beautiful messages about, like supporting me, helping me through like, kind of even dark times. Like, you are such a bright light, and this kind of beautiful, you are so loved, this kind of beautiful stuff to just really support me. So it was it was my guides speaking through me, trying to support me in beautiful ways, even when I wasn't clear enough to get their messages otherwise, or even, be calm enough to connect with them.
Yeah, I definitely can relate. I think there's a settling at the beginning that the guides are doing. And most of it feels like what our part of our supporting people at this time is that support of turning inward to get your own answers. So we can think of channeling as channeling ourselves to get the own answers so that we don't need to be looking outside for the answers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying that too, because even when I will channel, sometimes I'll just sit and channel for myself. And oftentimes I'll still do it in a notebook. And it's always my higher self or straight to source, because why not? Like we can channel that too. And that's what we all are, we're all source energy. But to just go direct and get my answers, get my clarity, because I think you're right. Like sometimes there's a misperception that guides are the end all be all, or going to, extraterrestrials and, from other star systems for our answers. But, I even had a session the other day with someone that they were saying, well, this channeler, these ET beings said this as if it was truth. And I was like, no, we always have to gut check it with our heart and check it with our own intuition, because we are source as well. And it's going back to that internal source, and it's always trusting ourselves. And that's so key. And I think to remember that too, even with channeling, and I know even like Lee Harris says this, that his guides will tell him things, and I'm the same. And I'll check in with myself, and sometimes it's a no. It's, they're guiding me in this direction, but I don't feel that. And I'll check it and double check it. But yeah, I think it's really important to also always navigate your own way, and with everything, not just in the world, but, what's happening in your own personal life, just to be aware and feel into everything. I do it right down to, should I go to the grocery store right now and feel in? I literally feel into that. Is it now?
Yes.
Is it now? Maybe I'll get distracted and it's like, oh no, I'm not supposed to go now. Okay. And then I'll check in an hour later. Is it now? Okay. Yeah, it's now. I feel it. It's now. Yeah. But I check in with everything.
Yes. No, I'm the same. I mean, you're reminding me a lot of myself with this. I'm the same. It can be from, different decisions I'm making on my business, of what time to host a class, at what day it's on. It's an inward. What I try to share with people about this, you may agree, is coming back to the sense that we're not alone. We're never alone. We've never been alone. And that when we cultivate that kind of relationship with our guides, our inner guidance, our team, there's a sense of we're always in company. We're always in relationship.
Yes. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about learning to channel and learning to connect that way, or however people connect with their guides, because there's lots of different ways that people connect with their guides, but that knowing that we're not alone, and, that we're always guided and we're so loved, and it's so beautiful. And, and I think the cool thing is, Paula, like I mean, my guides and people will see that with the Pleiadians when I channel them, because they are my part of my guidance team, is that they can be really funny too. Like they have personalities, and to start to recognize the personalities is always fun, because I can get some really kind of cheeky guidance sometimes. I mean, I one of my funniest ones was I was trying to text my vet one time. My dog was having GI issues, and I was texting him and I said, could you prescribe this medication that he took for it? And I said, because I certainly don't want to be up all night with him. And I'm trying to hit send, and it won't send, and it won't send, and it won't send. And I go, okay, what? And I sit there for a second and I go, oh, okay. I'm creating a bad outcome by saying I don't want to be up all night with him. So I deleted that line, hit send, and I go, oh, you guys are so funny. Like, I was like, but I mean, yes, it's knowing that it's guidance, and knowing where it's coming from, and knowing kind of even the sense of humor and how they teach me.
Yeah.
is so fun. Is so fun. And that's when you realize you're not alone. Like you're being shown things all the time in subtle ways.
My funniest one is, I don't remember the dilemma, but the answer came, I got into the car and they play songs because I have a lot of guides that use songs for me. And so they just put on a song with the words to explain what's happening.
Oh, I love that. I love when that happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. That's great.
I get that a lot too. And oftentimes when I actually turn on music, I will say right away, you know, my higher self, you're the DJ.
Nice. I like that.
DJ. Or source,
Yeah, source.
You know, source, you're the DJ. And just see what comes through. And I actually do it almost every time I turn on music because I'm like, show me what I need to know right now. Just show me what I need to know. I think the funniest thing is when I do that and I know I'm in my mind and don't worry, be happy or some goofy little don't worry sound comes on and I'm like, okay, I know. I'm in my head. Thank you.
Got it. I love it.
Yes, note taken.
Well, I have seen you on Instagram sometimes and you'll have this little smirk before you say something. So I know it's something cute being revealed and then it's very cute.
Yeah. Well, and it's so, I mean, like I said, it's so fun because I mean, I was, you know, I'm kind of goofy and have a good sense of humor, but, and so is my own coach. She and I laugh a lot. But it's so fun that my own guides are just as, you know, fun and goofy. And sometimes, I mean, some of the things I've channeled, like mid-sentence, you know, they'll just say the funniest thing. And it's hard to not. I mean, I usually do laugh, but they'll put these little cheeky comments in that, yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. And I think also we have to remember too that, you know, I think for so many years, I thought spirituality was so serious, right? Like it was so serious.
Yeah.
And to realize that, you know, I think they bring me back to be in the joy, laugh, like have fun, play. Like that's really, really important. And that's really holding a different energy that's really important for us too. So I love that they do that.
Yes. And so this feels like a good place to start to talk about then. What are some of the things, one thing or two things that you wish you knew along the awakening journey that we can impart to the listeners if anybody is in the middle of that journey?
You know, I think the thing that is so profound but so simple is that everything that you think is happening to you is actually happening for you. And it's all a reflection, right? It's all a reflection. And if you can come back to yourself, if you can really come back to yourself with everything that occurs, you know, like we just talked about, like, you know, the text message to go, oh, okay, so I need to be more aware of what I'm saying. I need to be more aware because I'm a powerful creator. Just in the day to day, I mean, I had a conversation with a neighbor a couple days ago and I came home and I went, okay, yeah, I see some of that I got a little bit into ego. I saw the ego take over. It was just a beautiful sort of moment of reflection of, oh yeah, I see that. But how life shows us, gives us opportunities. Every moment is a learning opportunity. Every moment is showing us a sign. Everything. And it's all, you know, people get into this, oh, they did this to me. No, yeah, they didn't do it to you. It's a beautiful teaching moment. And I think when we really can take the observer perspective and step back from that and start to take every moment and learn from it, where can I grow from this? Or where is this a reflection of where I'm at? Or maybe where I don't love myself deeper, or I don't trust myself, or whatever it is. Life is just a beautiful reflection. And we learn that in some really challenging ways. I mean, we haven't even talked about it, but when I left the corporate world, I mean, I went deep into lack, you know, deep into sort of this old poverty mentality. And wow, did life become a reflection of that? And it was this having to realize the subtle difference between when I was in lack mentality and when I actually appreciated and felt the abundance of what I had. And things would shift. So it was this powerful teaching of, you know, like, I mean, I took it deep. I was at the food pantry. I remember going to the food pantry and in lack mentality, and they didn't have anything I needed. But if I went in abundance mindset, if I went with things in mind that I even needed and wanted and was excited and, and felt like, yeah, I'm going to be able to get things I need, they would have it. And everyone at the food pantry would be delightfully sweet to me. And I just learned how it was a reflection. And I learned how to start to shift that and shift things in my life and really, make changes accordingly that way, that my energy was, everything was a reflection of that and my beliefs and what I was putting out. And it's not, and I want to say too with that, Paula, that it's not about us being false positive and, not allowing the feelings, because I had to also work through all the fear. I had to work through those deep fears or in that time around the lack mentality and about survival, because survival is so ingrained in us. And when I worked through those fears and let them surface and just felt them and let them move through without getting caught up in them, and then could see, and have gratitude for what I had, I was starting to shift it. And that would clear more and more with each episode that I had of fear coming up. And yeah, and but it's so profound when we realize, wow, once I've cleared all this stuff out that was reflecting sort of this life that I didn't really want, with the beliefs that I had and the fears that I had and the survival mode that I was in, once I let those fears arise and move through it and just trust my instincts, trust my intuition and follow, my guidance in every moment, and also very consciously shift my perspective on things, everything shifts.
So being able to understand how your perspective influences what happens on the outside is an important piece of this. Okay. And so a practical application of that can be simply paying more attention to your thoughts. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Huge. Yeah. I mean, it's, when I first started paying almost hyper attention to my thoughts, it feels a little like you're going crazy, because you realize that I always say the human is it's a separate being, and it has, this limited perspective on things. And once you can pull back and see that, and it's chattering away and maybe reactive, the body is reacting, it's, it's causing reactions, it's chattering, it's judging, it's fearing, it's, telling old stories, trying to project the past onto your present or your future. It's this moment of, wow, I am going crazy. What is going on? How do I control this? But it just takes awareness and, it takes time to really learn to shift that and to see it with awareness and compassion, and have compassion for that human and that their perspective and this, very fear-based world that we've been in. And it's just that awareness. And the more that you can shift that with awareness and just observe all the time and see it. And like I said, I had a conversation with the neighbor the other day, and I went home and went, I wasn't totally observing it with awareness. And I came home and I went, okay, now, I'm in retrospect here, I am observing some of the things that happened in that. And I see a little bit where I got in my ego mind. I see where the ego kind of took it a few times, and not beating myself up about it, but just awareness. Okay. Yeah. I see that. And, I see that from an observer perspective now, and just with awareness. So I know where I need to be more aware in the future. Right.
And I'm going to guess, and this might be our point B that we add, is sometimes when we're connecting with those that are, when we're in that place of only seeing from a limited perspective, there's a drawing into that conversation at that level. And so to be aware of the different frequencies of the conversation and how you may be invited to go, not that down is worse, but, take a left-hand turn into a frequency versus a right-hand turn. And yeah, that right-hand turn is always going to be the one that has perspective, compassion, openness, curiosity. And that is really that's the the difference between the two worlds. Yeah.
And a beautiful word came up around that the other day, virtue, like or being virtuous, like just having that, that energy and just, the other thing, Paula, I wanted to say too, that popped up for me even today in a moment was the awareness of, because I happened to be listening to an episode of the telepathy tapes last night, and, just this awareness, because there's this awareness that I've had multiple people in my life that are fully telepathic over the years, and I was very aware of it. But just this awareness that everyone's becoming telepathic, right? And there's no better reason to learn to manage the mind than that, because there's, none of us would want to, have the mind coming up with a judgmental thought, or even telling a story about someone that's not true, or because the mind tends to generate stories, out of fear or self-protection or whatever. But it's about that awareness. And so that we don't harm anyone accidentally, like not inadvertently, without intention, and just to learn to manage that mind with the awareness that there are many out there that are already telepathic, but everyone's becoming more telepathic. And there's no better reason than that to learn to manage your mind. That's for sure.
I feel that particular show is bringing not that it's bringing in the science, but it's inviting science to become part of the conversation with the phenomenology of our expanded senses. And so I want to make sure we name that if any of the listeners haven't listened to the telepathy tapes.
Yeah. Well, and it's I think that one's a perfect show for those who are sort of non-believers or who are challenged with the concept and struggling with it, because you're right, they have a lot of science on there. They talk to a lot of scientists and a lot about they speak very much to the non-believers. They really do on that show. But it's, it's beautiful. It's also beautiful because, this world is really opening to it in beautiful ways. And it excites me that podcast I think it was at the top of the list, at least for a while. And it's exciting because it's like, wow, people are really waking up, and it's really cool, and exploring these avenues.
It's time, definitely. Wow. Okay. So I feel like we have brought in a few practical tools. Is there anything else you would mention for the audience before we close, of any other thing that you've used that might support them in their awakening that we haven't mentioned yet?
I spend a lot of time alone. I really have learned, and mind you, I've learned to, I know that we can all get caught up in our scrolling social media and keeping ourselves busy. And I have taken time away from those things. I even actually, not saying people have to do this, but got rid of my TV, got rid of some of the distractions in my life, just to start to really be more present and to really also manage the energy coming into my space and in my life. So I've learned in my, and I say alone, but like in my time to myself, what feels good, what feels right, and how to recognize that too. For example, sometimes I'm scrolling social media and it's amazing. I'm getting great messages. I'm encountering new people that feel great to me and I connect to. And other times it's, wow, something's not right here. Something's really off. But it's been in this, I don't think we can really learn to recognize some of these things without some alone time, without some time to ourselves to really hone that ability to tap in and recognize. Like, I really attribute my time to myself, whether it's going for a walk or sitting outside with my dog for a bit or even scrolling social media, but to recognize, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, that feels right. Or noticing those things that pop in, because sometimes sitting with my dog in the patio, like the other day, I got a past life that I I'd never seen just a clip, just a bit, just a quick download in a moment. And it was like, oh, wow. And it gave me so much clarity. So, unless we take that quiet time to ourselves, we're not going to be able to tap in as well to and understand ourselves or even get the guidance we need. And truly, I can navigate now, in social situations and everything, but I think it took me time to really be alone and to really recognize things on a deeper level, to be by myself and have the time to go, oh, wow, what was that? That was interesting. Or wow, I can feel that. That makes me feel agitated, or that feels really good to me. But I think when we're constantly distracted, we can't get there. So I think it's really about taking the quiet time to ourselves in whatever capacity that is to learn. It's almost like a time of re-educating ourselves. The human body is so amazing, and what we're capable of and what we're connected to is so amazing that we have to take the time to reconnect to that and, shut out the distractions. And just, like I said, it can be walking, sitting with the dog, walking the dog, meditating, whatever feels right to people, even laying down for a nap. Sometimes when I'm in that in-between state, wow, I get so much clarity and so many downloads. So it's really just intentionally taking that time to yourself if you have a really busy life, because if you don't, that connection just is not going to be easy for you.
Okay, that feels like a very nice segue. We've given them some things to talk about, listeners, some things to think about. I would love to end with a little brief synopsis on what you offer, your website, where people can find you. Of course, we know you're on Instagram and you can experience Jen live and in short excerpts there as well. So please, let's share where people can find you.
Thank you, Paula. Yeah, they can find me on my website, which is Jen Tammy, JenTammy.com. And all of my offerings are there, and you can link to everything I have there. But I do offer one-on-one sessions where I literally hold space and bring through, it's very energetic, but I bring through, intuitive messages. I bring through channeled messages. I bring through light language. I even tap into some of my old skill set and pull in some oracle cards and things like that sometimes. But the sessions, and coaching skills too a little bit, but I really feel that's very intuitive. But yeah, it taps into a number of different things, and every session is very different and just beautiful. And, I've even brought in messages from loved ones who've passed over and things like that. So it's really fun because it's sort of like whatever is needed for that person comes through, and it's just a beautiful, fun, and profound experience. So that's my favorite thing that I do. I also have a Patreon page, which you can also find via my website, but find the link, where I'm offering extended light language activations, where I'm offering extended channeled messages, and I'm offering live Q&A and discussions, which is really fun because, just like you and I are doing, I get to talk to my audience and see what questions they have. And really kind of work through things on their awakening journey. And I also offer workshops on there, which, are really fun. The last one I did was on the ego mind and managing the ego mind and the different personalities of the ego mind, which was really fun. So, those are my two biggest offerings right now. And you can also find me on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. Those are my 3 social medias I'm really active on, and also sign up for my email on my website. But yeah, otherwise I'm also working on a book and some other things in the background. So those, I'm not sure when those will come out, but that will come soon. Get on my email list. Yeah.
We'll bring you back on.
Sounds
we'll bring you
great.
back on when the book
wonderful.
comes out. Great. I have loved this conversation. I've loved it, practical, down to earth and authentic. And that's really what we need right now, right? Of just who's out there getting the job done.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the least amount of bling.
Exactly. It's a humbling
done.
and beautiful journey. That's for sure. But we're shifting in beautiful ways, and things are going to change in beautiful ways going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that people have gotten to meet you. I hope they reach out, and I would love to bring you back again. So until then.
I would love that, Paula. Thank you. It's been beautiful. It's been so fun getting to know you too. You're a delight. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for being a part of the Transformative Harmonics Podcast. If this discussion resonated with you, please subscribe, share the episode, or write a review. This helps to support the expanding community around embodiment, sound, and conscious living. You can visit Transformative Harmonics at paulascatoloni.com to find out more about my work, forthcoming classes, and the Transformative Harmonics Academy. You can also reach out and connect with me on Instagram. My handle is at Paula Scatoloni. I write regularly on Substack at Signature Frequency Living. Until next time, take good care, and thank you for being part of the journey.